Whenever we talk about heaven, there's different responses, and the responses are usually pretty typical, okay? Which is, number one, I think this is kind of, sadly, but it's kind of the minority, but it's, yay, I'm happy that there is heaven, okay? But I think that's a very minority of people, okay? I think there's a very few people who are very excited about heaven. But the other two, I think it's a lot more, which is, I absolutely hate heaven. Like, I don't want to even think about heaven. I think the problems in life are happening is because people are thinking about heaven too much. Hi, Guram. Okay? So that's one extreme, right? One extreme is, I want to go there right now. And the other extreme is, I don't want to be there at all. And then I think most of us are probably in between where we're kind of indifferent. Like, yeah, heaven would be nice, but I don't really feel the need to go to heaven right now. Like, it'll be nice. But I got some stuff to do. I got here. Okay. So last 2 weeks we talked about why is it that we're kind of in this middle ground, or maybe even towards the negative side of heaven. Okay. Today we're going to talk about another reason. Okay. Now this reason, I think it's really, really solid, because when Jesus first came from heaven the first time, there was two types of people as well. Or three types, I guess. There were people, very few though, people who were very excited that Jesus was coming. There were people who were absolutely frightened and hated the fact that Jesus came. And then there's people in the middle. They're like, well, maybe Jesus is coming, maybe Messiah is coming, maybe not, kind of a thing. Okay, so today we're going to actually, even though I know we're kind of going into the Christmas season, but it's kind of a Christmas story. The elements of Christmas story. So we're going to actually see the two types of people. Why was it that these group of people were super excited, and these people were like, I hate it. And I think there's something that we can learn from this as well. Okay. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem. So there's two people already, right? We see King Herod, and we see the Magi's from the east. And the Magi's came to Herod and said, where's the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star, and when it rose, and have come here to worship him. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. Not every single one of them, but he's just talking about how, like, the governors and the people, council members, they were all frightened. Okay, so again, we see King Herod. What is he doing? He's frightened the fact that, hey, someone has come from heaven. Okay, now we're going to see the other side. When the Magi, so they went a couple verses later, when the Magi saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw this child, Jesus, with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their gifts and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So, two different people. Now, I'm going to explain a little bit more. I'm going to go into Greek a little bit, okay? Because these words right here, it doesn't do justice. Number one, we see here, it says, this is an NIV version, by the way. Okay, so they said they were overjoyed, okay? But this is not a very good translation. Okay, it's correct, but it doesn't do enough justice, okay? Because in English, it's just one word. But in Greek, there's 4 words to describe this right here. But they decided, English translated, they decided to just make this shorter. So in ESV, it translates it better. This is what literally it says in the Greek. It says, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. This is way over the top, as you can see. That's why I think NIV, there was like, okay, let's maybe save some space and just put overjoyed. Because it's basically that. But the Greek, it overdoes it. And Greek in language, it's very concise. So what is the writers of this book trying to tell us? That they were like over the top happy. Okay, I don't know what's gonna make, let's say, like recently $2 billion was the lottery. Maybe you won that. Maybe some of you guys would be like jumping up and down, tearing your clothes off. I don't know, okay? But, all right, to use our like modern language, basically they were super super happy, excited, okay? That's exactly what it says in Greek. okay, that they were very, very over the top excited. Okay, but Herod on the other case, again, this word terrified doesn't really. Let me see. The word, it just says he was disturbed. Okay, the literal word in Greek, it means when you're so scared that you are shaking. Okay, so again, the Greek word, it actually provides us with, yes, that is disturbed, of course, but much more than that. It's terrified to a degree where you are shaking. Okay, or where you feel uneasy. Okay, you are anxious, you're scared, that you can't just stay still. Maybe you got a phone call, or you're very anxious about something, and so you don't stay still, you're walking around. Okay, so that gives you a better glimpse. Okay, we see one side, extremely, extremely happy, jumping up and down. And the other, they're shaking in their boots. Okay, why is that? Why is it that these people are so happy and these people were so unexcited? If anything, they were shaking in their boots. And that's what we're going to talk about. Okay? Maybe if we could understand them better, maybe we can understand why is it that we don't really desire Jesus' second coming as much. Okay? We're going to do Herod's first. We're going to talk about the negative first. Okay? Now, what do the Magi's ask? If you understand what they're asking, then it makes sense why King Herod is very, very terrified. Over here it says, where is the one who has been born king of the Jews? So he's saying, they come from a foreign country, okay, and they said, where's the king? Okay, but what is Herod thinking? I'm the king. What are you talking about, another king? And they're like, no, not you, the king. The real, not you, no. I know you got a crown and you're sitting on this, but not you, the real king. Okay? Do you see what he's asking? If we actually see in history, Herod was a very, very, already he was a very nervous king. He was a very self-conscious, very insecure king already. Okay? What happened was he actually killed all of his relative members, family members, brothers and sisters to actually become king number one. Not only that, whenever he saw, and we see this actually written in history, in Josephus, he's a Jewish historian that writes about him. We actually see that there's some council members, he sees them and he feels like, they're going to try to usurp me. And so he just kills them. So this was the type of king he was. Foreigners come and they say, not you. We want the real king. Okay, do you understand why King Herod, what does he do later? What does he do? He kills babies under 2. He goes on extreme measures. Why? Because he wants to stay a king. He wants to make sure, I don't care about the king, I want to stay a king. Do you see why he's so terrified? He's shaking in his boot? Because he wants his position. He likes control. He likes power. Maybe he likes the respect that he gets. He likes the freedom. Maybe he likes the control. And he knows that if another king comes, what happens to him? I can't do whatever I want. Another king's going to tell me what to do. I have to look up instead of looking down at other people. And so, Herod doesn't like that. And so that's why when he hears, even though it's a baby, he hears about another king coming, he gets terrified. He's shaking in his boots. Does that make more sense? So I was wondering, is it possible that we are not very excited about Jesus coming, perhaps, and not all of you guys, but is it possible for some of us, we're not happy about Jesus coming because we know that when Jesus comes, we have to get off our throne. We have to take our crown off and give it to the right king. Is it possible that it's because we have control issues, we have insecurity issues, we feel like he's going to come and tell me what to do, that I don't get to build my own kingdom, that we're not very happy about Jesus coming? Because think about it even now. Okay, think about, maybe you hear sermons about, it's not about, don't do it your way, do it God's way. And deep inside of you, you're not like, yay, I want to do it God's way. But what's going on? You're like, there's reluctance. There's fear. But what if God doesn't know what he's doing? Or what if he makes me do stuff that I don't want to do. Right? So that means each and every one of us, or most of us, I think, have a little Herod within us. And we go, if God comes, yeah, all that heaven stuff, this stuff, it sounds good, but really, God, there's stuff that I gotta do. You know, God, don't you know I got a 10-year plan? And I gotta build my kingdom. I gotta make a name for myself. I gotta do a bunch of different stuff. So Jesus, can you come a little bit later? Let me first do what I want to do. Again, like little Herod. Let me do my little own kingdom. And afterwards, perhaps after I do some of that, maybe you can come. Again, I think this is why we make God very small. We don't like to think of, there's two things, right? The first thing is, we just don't have, like most of us grew up in countries where we never had king or monarchs in general. So that concept in itself is weird to us. But secondly, I think it's really because we rather have God as our supporter instead, rather than a king. Even though God is, yes, a great therapist, I believe. He listens to us. Like in Isaiah, it talks about, you know that song? Right, that song, right? It's like, he's a great, mighty, he's our comforter. He's Emmanuel, he's God with us. Yes, he is with us, he's a comforter, yes, at the same time, but he's a king as well. But a lot of times I think when we conceptualize God, we like to make him very, very small, right? So we go, God, what kind of advice or suggestions do you have for me? I'm in this situation, God. What kind of advice would you like to give me? What kind of suggestions? But king doesn't do that, right? King doesn't go, a servant doesn't come and say, King, oh king, I have this kind of issue. You know, I know you're telling me to do this and this and this, but my schedule right now, you know, I'm trying to fit your command in, but I was wondering if we could negotiate a little bit here. You know, like, can I put you at my 9 o'clock instead of my, you know, things like that, right? No, that doesn't work that way. With your counselor, you can. You can say, oh, I'm actually busy. You know, can I talk to you another time? Let me schedule another time. And then when I am open, when I am comfortable, when I want to do, when you could support me, when you can help me, then I'll let you help me, kind of a thing. And maybe if I like what you have to say to me, then I'll listen. But you as a servant of king, it don't work like that, right? A servant can do that. Okay? We have a little concept of this. Like, I think everybody in here has never gone to the military, but can you imagine a soldier goes to the commander and says, you know, I know, you know, you're doing all these training, but come on. I know people are going out there and war, but can I just I want to do my chill thing. I want to just rest a little bit here. Can I just do the training part, but actually go to war? I don't want to do that. You know, can I just play do PC computer instead? It's more comfortable. You know, can you make that happen? Can you imagine a soldier doing that to a commander? No. And again, I think that's why many of us, when we think about Jesus coming, okay? Jesus doesn't come. Yes, of course, again, he's our counselor, he's our great friend, he's a great father. And yet we have to understand he's our king as well. And so when king comes, then what happens? Then we got to get off our throne. And that's very difficult for us. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have a difficult time desiring heaven. On the one hand, when I talk about the beauty of heaven, the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we've been doing that. And you go, yeah, I really want to be at a place where there is no more pain, no more suffering, no more sorrow. And yet, what happens? We're not willing to let go of our control. Okay? Just think of even this room. And think of how many little Herods we have in here. And imagine us trying to live in the same place. What happens? There's conflicts, there's wars, there's pain. Okay? If there was no law, there would be probably death as well. Okay? And yet at the same time we go, Jesus, get rid of all these things, get rid of all these things. And so Jesus says, okay, get off the throne then. And we're like, nope. No, I'm holding on to control, Jesus. No, you got to fix these other little Herods. This little Herod is worse than me. And that's what we do. When God says, oh, you want me to fix the problem of this world? Then I'm going to work with you. But we go, nope, work with my brother or work with my spouse. Okay, work with my coworker, work with my boss. That person, they really need Jesus. Me, I'm pretty good. Okay, so the first thing is to recognize that we have little Herod in all of us. And that we're not, if we continue to be little Herods, then we're not going to be building God's kingdom. Instead, we're not going to be praying. Remember our prayer series? We're not going to be praying, God, let your will be done and your kingdom come. But we're going to be continuing to pray, God, my kingdom come, my will be done. And as long as we're doing that, we're not actually working with God's kingdom, but we're trying to build our own. Okay, so that's the first thing that we got to recognize. All right, couple of slides here. Because I forgot what I was going to talk about next. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to talk about why I think, we talked about, okay, Herod was not excited. I'm going to talk about people, I think very few people, even these days, kind of like the Magi's, they're really, really excited. And maybe, I'm sorry that I called you little Herod. Maybe you guys are more like Magi, okay? Maybe you are super duper excited about heaven, about Jesus' second coming, okay? So I'm going to talk about 3 groups of people, okay, that were super duper excited about Jesus coming, okay? I'm going to start from a long time ago, and then a little bit long time ago, and then present day today, okay? This is one type. The one type of people are people who are persecuted right after Jesus left, okay? The Christians were being persecuted all the time. First, they were persecuted by the Jewish people. Because, remember, Jesus and his disciples, they were all Jewish. But these Jewish people, they said, no, we don't need to follow the old commandment anymore. Because Jesus fulfilled it. And these other Jews were so angry. And they said, how dare you try to change our tradition? Who are you to change all of this? Are you greater than Moses? And so they started to kill Christians and arrest Christians. But afterwards, Christianity continued to grow and grow and grow. It started to affect the Roman people. Because the Romans, they were okay. They were very like people of nowadays. The Romans, they were okay. You believe what you want to believe. I'm going to believe what I want to believe. That's fine. They were okay with multiple gods. But what did Christians say? Christian says, no, there's only one God. Because the Romans, they were like, I'll worship this God, I'll worship this God, I'll worship this God. I'll get all the benefit from all the gods. And the Christians were like, no, all these gods are fake. There's only one living God. And there's only salvation only through one. And just like now today, right? You say those kind of things and they're like, you're a bigot. How can you do hate speeches like that? How can you say those things? Okay, so very similarly, and so the Romans, the emperors, they started to persecute Christians in a radical, radical way. Okay, so I'm going to just give you a description. His name is Tacitus. He's a Roman historian. He was writing about Emperor Nero. And Nero was he was a lunatic, but he treated Christians really badly. Okay, and Tacitus, he's a historian writing about this. Okay. In perishing, the Christians were additionally made into sports. So not only did they just gather the Christians and kill them, they decided, hey, we're going to kill them anyways, let's play games with them. Let's use them as our entertainment, like Gladiator and things like that. They were killed by dogs by having the hides of beasts attached to them. So what they would do is they would kill smaller animals and they would attach them to their clothes. Right? And so when lion comes out, what do? They smell the blood and they chase after, they were nailed to the crosses, just like Jesus, and they were set aflame. Okay, they would actually, I'm reading a book called The Book of Martyrs, and it talks about how they just dump wax on them. So they just continue to burn and burn and burn. Okay, and when the daylight passed away, they were used as nighttime lamps. Do you understand what's going on? They're saying, oh yeah, because they don't have electricity back then, right? So they're like, hey, let's use these Christians as our light. Okay, nighttime light. Let's just burn them up. Oh, we have light now. Okay. Nero gave his own gardens for this spectacle and performed a circus game. Okay, do you see what kind of stuff these people are going through? Even though they were clearly guilty and merited being made the most recent example of the consequences of crime, people began to pity these sufferers. Do you see what it's saying? In the beginning, they were cheering on. They were like, yeah, kill these Christians. They deserve it. But it was so bad that they started to actually pity them. Because they were consumed not for the public good, but on the count of fierceness of one man, which is Nero. Okay, can you imagine? In Revelation, it talks about there's a scene in Revelation where there's martyrs, like these people who have died. And these martyrs are crying out to God. And you know what they're saying? They're saying, how long? How long, God? How long will you let this injustice continue to go on and on and on? These people, when they hear about second coming, what are they saying? They're not yawning. Okay? They're not like, oh, I have to get off my throne. No. They're already treated like dogs. And so because of that, they're saying, God, we want justice. We want the second coming to come now. We're longing. How long? How much longer are you going to let this atrocity happen to your people? So there's people, even nowadays, right? There's martyrs in certain countries that are being killed for their religion. Or maybe there's even people in America that are being persecuted because of their beliefs. And so they're longing, they're saying, how long? Come soon, come soon. They want Jesus to come. They're going to be jumping up and down when the true king comes and judges. Do you see that? I'll give you another example. Second example are from about 17th century to 19th century, something in America happened. Do you know what happened in about 17th to 19th century? Big thing. People went to Africa and they said, hey, there's all these black people. Oh, they look really strong. Hey, maybe we can force them and make them into slaves. Okay, so people from all over Europe and America, they kidnapped all these black people, Africans, and what did they do? Made them into slaves. During those times, from the 17th century to 19th century, these black people, they started to develop Christianity. Okay, and this is what we call Negro spirituals. Negro spirituals. Okay, and there's a lot of different songs during this time. Okay, and they focus a lot on heaven. Okay, now some modern people nowadays, scholars say, actually that was really bad for them. That was really, really bad for these slaves, looking at heaven. Okay, because it made them docile. What they should have done was they should have realized that this is all they had. Like there is no heaven, there is no better place. They needed to fight against the white people. Okay, they're slave owners. But instead, they were looking at heaven and things like that, so that made them more docile. But actually, there's a guy named Howard Thurman. He's a contemplative. He was not during the civil movement, but right before the civil movement. Okay, he was one of the leaders of the pre-civil rights movement. Okay, and this is what he said. He went to Harvard and he was giving a speech. He said, basically, I know that there's scholars out there who's saying that the Negro spiritual was a bad thing for them. But he's saying, no, it was the ultimate thing for them. Okay, the reason why I am here today is because they had this concept of heaven. They had a big concept of heaven. Okay, this is what he says. The facts, however, make clear this song, faith, served to deepen the capacity of endurance and absorption of suffering. So he's saying, one side they're saying, no, like it made them docile, it made them just into slaves. But he's saying, no, it made them actually stronger. It actually made them be able to suffer through all of these things. It gave them perseverance because they knew that there was heaven. Okay, let's keep going. The spirituals taught people how to ride high in life, to look squarely in the face of those facts that argue most dramatically against all hope, and to use facts of heaven, of hell, and judgment day as a raw material out of which they fashioned the hope the environment with all its cruelty could not crush. So he's saying because they had heaven, they had the tools to endure hell on earth. If they didn't have that, what he's saying is they would have all just died. They would have had zero hope. Continuing on, this enabled the slaves to reject annihilation, okay, or what we commonly known as nihilism. Nihilism meaning like there's no meaning in life, This is all like lame. I'm just going to kill myself, that kind of idea. And affirm a terrible way to live, right to live. The center of focus was beyond themselves to a God who was a companion to them in their miseries, even as He enabled them to transcend their miseries. And that was good news. Okay, do you see what he's saying? He's saying, no, heaven actually gave them hope here on earth. Okay? It didn't make them docile. It actually made them stronger. Because imagine, okay? Let's say we're all slaves here. And let's say somebody comes and say, oh, God, heaven, there's none of these things at all. Okay? We're just going to be slaves all the days of our life. We're just going to die, and that's it. And all the slave owners, all the people that took advantage of you, all the injustice that happened, no one's going to be judged. Does that give you hope? Does that give you, okay, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and live a better day tomorrow? No, that's pure hopelessness. Rather, again, the things out of here are out of control. These people, there's injustice in this world. And yet, there is a true king coming that's going to come and rightfully judge. And these people, these slave owners, these people who kidnapped us, these people who have taken away my babies and separated me from my husband or wife, these people are going to get what they deserve. What's going to make your life better? What's going to actually give you hope? Okay? And this is exactly what Howard Thurman is trying to say. No, heaven gives you hope. If you're going through injustice, you're going to be looking forward to heaven. So again, the black slaves, they're looking towards heaven. They're looking for heaven. They want heaven to come. They want to be in heaven. Why? Because here on earth, it's hell. Okay? Last example, my friend got married. Okay? Wanted to have a baby because that was the dream of her husband. His dream was, I want to have a family together. That's my biggest dream. Finally has a baby. But soon afterwards, gets diagnosed with breast cancer. Okay? So what happens? Okay? She loses her beauty. She loses her hair. She has to go to treatment. She loses her baby. Right? Because, again, what do we call it? Radiation therapy. Yeah. So what happens? Right? So all of these things, everything is taken away. So when I talk to her, what is she saying? She's saying, I want Jesus to come back. This is way too much for me. This suffering is too much. I desire heaven. She's not yawning at heaven. Because she realizes how terrible this world is. Do you see that? So that's really the difference between people who are excited about heaven and people who are like, eh. Now, with all of that, if you read the Beatitude in Luke chapter 6, it makes a lot more sense. Okay, this is what Jesus says. Because on the face front, just looking at Luke chapter, this Luke and the Beatitudes in Luke, then you're going to be like, oh, it's kind of confusing. But with this kind of mindset, if you look at it, it makes a lot more sense. Look. Looking at his disciples, Jesus said, blessed are those who are poor, for yours is the kingdom. Why? Because the poor people are looking for the kingdom of God. They know that this world is not a good place. Blessed are you who hunger now, for you will be satisfied. Blessed are you who weep now, like my friend. Why? Because there will be a place, no more tear, no more sadness, no more cancer, no more losing baby. Blessed are you when people hate you, when people exclude you, insult you, reject your name as evil because of the Son of Man. The first Christians, right, who are being martyred, do you think they're ready to hear this? But look what Jesus says here. But woe to you who are rich, for you already have received your comfort. Woe to you who are fed now, for you will go hungry. Woe to you who laugh now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you then, anybody who speaks well of you, for that is how your ancestors treated the false prophets. Okay? So again, on the front, if you just read this, you'll be like, wait, is Jesus against rich people? Is Jesus against like laughing? Like we should always be sad? No, obviously that's not what Jesus is talking about right here, right? But Jesus is talking about people who say, I don't need God because I'm good. I got my money and I could build my own kingdom here. I don't need you, God. Or God, my life is pretty good. I'm having a good time here. And Jesus is saying, woe to you. Because you don't realize a kingdom of God is coming and you're like, no, I want to build my own kingdom here. I'm satisfied here. I want to do my stuff here. Do you see that? Do you see the contrast? So really, at the heart, we need to really see, what am I doing? Am I trying to build my own kingdom here? Or am I really praying, God, your will be done. God, your kingdom come. Because I know, on the one hand, it feels good to have your kingdom here, right? It feels nice to have your group of people, your family, your little thing, and feel good. But we don't realize that, again, every single one of us think that. And when every single one of those people get in each other's way, what do? We kill, we lie. There's evil that comes out of us. And again, that's why, if you think of it in that case, Herod killing those babies, it was not really a big deal for Herod. He didn't have to think twice. He's like, this baby's going to get in my way? Just destroy. So we have to understand, when we look at news, when we see evil in this world, we have to understand, yes, there are evil people, but you have to also understand, if we don't submit our will, we are contributing to that evil as well. If you're not seeking for God's kingdom and seeking your own kingdom, you're contributing to the mess of this world. And so we have to continue to pray, God, your kingdom come, your will be done. Now, this is much easier said than done, right? Because it's much easier just to like theorize all of these things. But when God literally comes and says, Sarah or Lysia, give me your heart. Surrender this part of yourself. Not suggestion, not, hey, do you think it would be a good idea, right, to come into your heart? None of those things, right? He says surrender. Lay it down. That's very difficult. But I think, again, going back to baby Jesus, it gives us a really good glimpse of how we can actually do this. The first thing, some of us, we don't do it because we don't trust God. Okay, we go, what is God going to do with my life? He might ruin it. He might make me do things I don't enjoy. Maybe he's this horrible God, controlling God, that wants to just control me and make me into a robot. But how does Jesus come? Does Jesus come as this, like when he first came, of course? When he came, did he come as this king and says, everybody bow down to me? How dare you look at me? What does he do? He comes as a baby. The most fragile being. A baby. That's how he comes. He came humbly before us. Second coming, he's not going to come like that. He's going to come as a king, as a true king. But when he approaches us, he approached us as a baby, not as have control. No, he says, let me show you that I'm not power hungry. I'm willing to lay down everything. I'm willing to be vulnerable to you. I'm willing to put myself to death just to show you how much I am in for you. So you could trust me. I'm not trying to take over your life. I'm not trying to make your life miserable. If anything, here's how far I'm willing to go to show you how much I am in it for you. Then the second thing is seeing Jesus on the cross. Right? Seeing that's what he's willing to do, to kill all the little Herods within us. Our Herods are not going to die. It's going to just continually grow and grow and grow and grow. But Jesus says, you have made an atrocity of this wonderful heaven on earth that I gave you, but you guys have ruined it and now it's hell. Now all of these crazy things are happening. I mean, you just look at the news. Look at all the atrocities that are happening in the world. But he's saying, but I have given you a way out. For all the people, not all the pain that you've yourself given to yourself, and all the pain that you've given to all your friends and family members and all the people around you because of your mistakes and little Herods, there's forgiveness. There's justice. Why? Because I'm willing to die instead. I'm willing to pay your consequences so that you can take my status instead. I'll take your consequence, you take my status as the Son of God, daughters of God. Only that, by seeing that beauty, then we can kill our little Herods, take off our crown, get off the throne, and tell Jesus, please, take the throne of my life. Take the crown that you rightly deserve. I want to end with this verse. In Philippians, it says that at the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow, in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is the Lord, to the glory of God the Father. It says not just the Christians, right? It says every single one. When Jesus comes, every single one of us, whether you believe in a God or not, you will submit. You will say, you are the true king. All of us are going to do that. Some of us are going to do it reluctantly. Some of us are going to do it without choice. And they're going to be very, very unhappy. But some of us, if we start doing that today, when Jesus does that, we will gladly, happily, overjoyedly do it, saying, yes, this is exactly what I was waiting for. Which one are you going to be? Are you going to be King Herod? Or are you going to be the Magi's who are overly excited? Jesus calls us to experience this peace and happiness starting today.